Hey everyone, Mitch coming over the Commander Score studio. Welcome to the show. So today's episode comes to you courtesy of one of my amazing patrons, Eric, who's been supporting this channel as a general tier patron. I truly couldn't do this without the support from amazing patrons like Eric. So again, Eric, thank you so much. And for the personalized deck tech, Eric chose a theme of Rage with Machines that's artifacts and artifact creature focused. And I chose the commander for this theme to be Cayth, Famed Mechanist, a 3/3 Dwarf Artificer for 4 mana in Jeskai. Fabricate 1. Other non-token creatures you control fabricate 1. Pay 2, tap, choose 1. Populate or proliferate. So that's right. Every single time we get a creature in play, non-token creature that is, we get to fabricate 1, which means, yeah, we could go a counter, or we could get a machine. Yes, let's get that servo into play. Let's get a lot of robots out there. Just flood the board with those machines and rage with them. And of course, utilize a bunch of, well, artifact creature benefit effects to just demolish our opponents and just take over the game with our amazing machines. So, if you are interested in this deck, again, make sure you check out that deck list link in the description below. With all that said, let's jump into the tactics. So, first up, tactic number 1, helping hands. We've got some ways to help out our army. And first up, we've got Signal Pest, a 0/1 pest for 1 mana with Battle Cry. And on top of that, it can't be blocked except by creatures with flying or reach. It's got +1/+0 for all of our creatures when it attacks. Every single one of our other creatures gets ++0 when this swings low to the ground. Awesome. Again, we're going to be going so wide with all of our servos. Next up, speaking of growing our army, Steel Overseer. For just 2 mana, we've got this little 1/1, but we can tap it to get a counter on every single artifact creature we control. So yeah, that can add up a lot throughout the game. And again, keep in mind, our commander can help us proliferate too. Next up, Chief of the Foundry. Other artifacts you control, get ++1. All our artifact creatures are getting this nice little anthem boost from this creature. It's fantastic. Speaking of that, Master of Ethereum. Exact same thing, but also it's a star that has power and toughness each equal to the number of artifacts we control, which again is going to be a massive amount, especially that fabrication. Next up, Shimmermere gives us a new avenue, a new way to play. Flash, your artifact spells you cast have flash essentially. So essentially we can play on our opponent's turns, which is amazing, being able to react to what they do and just, yeah, be able to save up some mana for our spells when we need them. Next up, Tempered Steel. This is absolutely huge. A low to ground anthem. Artifact creatures you control get +2/+2, so a nice pump effect. Again, those little 1/1 servos that we're making are now 3/3s every single time we have a non-token creature come into play, which includes, of course, Thopter Engineer. Enters the battlefield, you make a 1/1 Thopter, so it brings a friend as well. On top of that, gives all of our artifact creatures haste, so we can swing right away. Moving on, Unctus Grand Meta-Tech helps out in a couple of different ways. Other blue creatures you control have, whenever this creature comes tapped, draw a card, then discard a card, so some nice looting there. On top of that, other artifact creatures control get ++1, so a nice anthem right there. And yeah, we can actually turn our creatures into blue artifacts until end of turn by paying a Phyrexian blue mana. Next up, Urza, Prince of Krug. This is a huge anthem for artifacts, +2/+2 for those artifact creatures. On top of that, pay 6 and we make copies of artifacts, except they're also 1/1 soldiers, which is quite nice. Then there's Artificer's Dragon, a 4/4 flyer that has a massive pump effect for our entire team. Pay a red, basically fire breathing for every single one of our artifact creatures, and we can unearth this if we need it. Finally, though, Workshop Elders. All of our artifact creatures have flying. That is absolutely huge. On top of that, beginning of combat on our turn, we can make a non-creature artifact that we have into an artifact creature. Cool. That's a 0/0, and we get 4 counters on it. So even our mana rocks and other things can help us out too. But now, so we want to do tactic number 2, the Golden Pig of this deck. And the Golden Pig is Alibu Ancient Witness, a 4/5 golem for 5 mana in Boros. Other artifact creatures you control have haste, which again is great. Being able to just being very aggressive with them, being able to just swing with them right away, absolutely fantastic, especially when we're going to go wide and be aggressive. And speaking of going wide, whenever 1 or more artifact creatures you control attack, Alibu Ancient Witness deals X damage to any target and use Scry X, the number of tapped artifacts you control. That's going to be a ton. Again, we are going so wide. We're going to be swinging with so many creatures. When we do that again, we're going to be dishing out a lot of damage to whatever target we want. Could be a creature, a planeswalker, even someone's face. On top of that, a lot of scry. What's not to love about that? Some great card selection. So this helps us out with a lot of things, making it the golden pick of the deck. Next up, tactic number 3, token time. Because, yeah, outside of our commander, we've got other ways to make tokens as well. Automated Assembly Line, an artifact for 2 mana. Whenever one or more artifact creatures you control deal combat to a player, you get an energy counter. And then also you can pay 3 energy counters to create a tap 3/3 colors or robot artifact creature token. Again, we're going to be going wide. We're going to be swinging all of our opponents. We're going to be getting a lot of these energies. And all of a sudden, we utilize them, and we can make our robot army even bigger. Moving on, speaking of that, Psy Master Thopterus. Whenever you cast an artifact spell, make a 1/1 Thopter with flying. That is huge. We are basically... not doubling up our commander's effect, but in a way, yes, and also a little bit better too, because it's giving us those flyers as well. Also, we can pay 1 a blue to sacrifice 2 artifacts to draw a card, so that's a nice avenue for card draw as well. Next up, Might Overseer, 4/2 with first strike. As long as it's your turn, creature tokens you control get ++0 at first strike. So that's a huge pump effect for our servos, our Thopters, etc., etc. On top of that, pay 3 in a Phyrexian White. Create a 1/1 colorless Phyrexian Might artifact creature token with Toxic 1, and this creature can't block. So again, yet another avenue to go wide and pump our team. Then we've got Sharding Sphinx, a 4/4 flying Sphinx for 6 mana. Whenever an artifact creature you control deals combat to a player, you may create a 1/1 blue Thopter artifact creature token with flying. I don't think you understand just how ridiculous this can get. I mean, maybe you do. Maybe you played with this or against this before, but oh my goodness. Basically, you go wide, you swing. You go even wider, then you swing. Then you go even wider. You keep basically doubling up your army every single time you're hitting, which is absolutely fantastic. Then there's Mirror Battlesphere. You know what this one does, right? 7 mana, 4/7 ETB, make 4/1/1 Mirror. There's also something about, attacking, tapping your mirror, dealing damage. That's lovely, too. Then we've got Threefold Thunder Hulk. Basically the new version of Mirror Battlesphere. A 0/0 gnome for 7 mana. Enters with 3 counters on it. Enters the battlefield or attacks, creating a number of 1/1 gnomes equal to its power. On top of that, we can pay 2 and sacrifice an artifact to get a counter on this. So the more power we give this, the more we're going to be doing with it. The more we're going to be making with it. And yeah, we can do that quite easily. Next up to tactic number 4, power plays. First up, a tiny little power play with Cybermet. Look how adorable it is. A 2/1 robot with Skulk for 2 mana. When it attacks and isn't blocked, gets +X/+0 until after X the number of attacking artifact creatures. Again, this basically can get through on a lot of opponents because it only has 2 power inherently. Once it gets through, it gets a giant pump effect based on our army, which is going to be quite massive. Speaking of that, Darksteel Juggernaut, indestructible, 5 mana, star. Power type each equal number of artifacts you control. Attacks each combat if able. Being able to just say, oh, okay, I throw this on the field. Oh, it's a 20/20. Absolutely amazing. It's only going to grow throughout the game with the number of artifacts that we have. Next up, Brutaclad Telcor Engineer. Creature tokens you control have haste. Yeah, a lot of ways for us to give our artifact creatures haste. Beginning of combat on your turn, create a 2/1 blue Phyrexian Mirror artifact creature token. Then you may choose a token you control. If you do, each other token you control becomes a copy of that token. Basically, pick your best token, and all of a sudden, all of them become that token. Absolutely lovely. And then finally, Metalwork Colossus. This is basically going to be free. 10/10 construct for 11 mana. Costs X less cast the total mana value of all non-creature artifacts you control, which we've got plenty of those as well. Sacrifice your artifacts, bring it back from your graveyard to your hand. So it's a giant free 10/10 that we can just keep getting back again and again and again. Next up, tactic number 5. I can dig it. A 1/3 robot for 2 mana. We've got Curie. Whenever it deals combat to a player, draw cards equal to its base power. By paying 1 a blue, exile another target non-token artifact you control. Curie becomes a copy of the exiled creature, except it has, whenever this creature deals combat to a player, draw cards equal to its base power. So yeah, basically, just take one of your big, other non-token artifacts, and all of a sudden this just becomes that. With the giant draw. Think of that with Metalwork Colossus. Next up, Loshio Clockwork Scholar. Parental combination to be dealt to attacking artifact creatures you control. That is massive. That is huge. That is swing freely and have no consequences. I mean, you might get swung back at, but no consequences of your creatures getting hit in combat. Whenever one of our artifact creatures enter the battlefield to control, draw a card. Triggers only once each turn, so keep in mind it does trigger on opponent's turns as well. Absolutely amazing. Next up, Nick Valentine Private Eye. Can't be blocked except by artifact creatures. Whenever it or another creature control dies, you may investigate. That can be a lot of clues for us, which is a lot of additional card advantage. Scrap Trawler, speaking of advantages, whenever this dies or another artifact creature control dies, all of a sudden we are, well, just actually getting something else back that is slightly smaller from our graveyard back to our hand. Speed of getting things though, Scrapyard Recombiner, Modular 2, tap, sacrifice an artifact, search your library for a construct, put in your hand. A great repeatable tutor. There's a lot of great constructs out there for us to get. Then there's Thopter Shop. Whenever one of our artifact creatures you control die, draw a card. Triggers only once each turn. Again, can trigger on opponent's turns as well. Top of that, pay 3 mana, tap, make a 1/1 Thopter. Speaking of Thopters though, Thopter Spy Network. Getting for upkeep, you control an artifact. We will have artifacts. Make a 1/1 Thopter. Nice. On top of that, whenever one of our artifact creatures you control deal combat to player, draw a card. Again, with each tripper on the table, with each turn essentially. Hey, as long as we have 3 opponents, that could be 3 card draw for us. Thank you so much. Every single turn. Lovely. Then there's Transplant Theorist. Whenever another artifact enters the battlefield you control, you may draw a card. If you do, discard a card. That counts our creature tokens entering too, so keep that in mind. A great way to dig down into our deck. We can also put cards from our graveyard on the bottom of our library if we need to, but yeah, if not, that's fine too. Research Thief, Flash Flying. Whenever an artifact creature you control deals combat to a player, draw a card. Yeah, that doesn't have a limit to the number that we can draw. It doesn't say like 1 or more. No, just any. So we're going to be drawing a lot. Combustible Gearhulk, a great threat and a great card draw engine for us as well. 6/6 First Strike, ETB, target opponent may have us draw 3 cards. You better do that, because if you don't, we actually mill those 3 cards and then deal damage equal that total mana value. So let us draw them. Ruin Grinder, another really threatening creature. 7/4 with Menace. When it dies, each player may discard their hand and draw 7 cards, or we can Mountain Cycle it away and not be so threatening with it. Either way is fine. Moving on to tactic number 6, tough stuff. First up, we've got Paladin Dance, Steel Maverick, a 3/3 Synth Knight for 3 mana, Vigilance Lifelink. We can exile it, and each creature we control, it's an artifact or human, gains indestructible until end of turn. A great way to protect our team. Speaking of which, Rootborn Defenses, populate, so make an extra copy of one of our artifact creature tokens. And also on top of that, creature control gain indestructible until end of turn. Then there's Bronze Garden. Oh my goodness, this can be a one-shot KO on probably about anyone. Double Strike, Ward 2. Other artifacts you control have Ward 2, so it's always just nice right there, just be able to protect our things. On top of that though, power equal to the number of artifacts we control. My goodness, that can easily be 20 plus, hitting with Double Strike again. Yeah, it could be a one-shot KO if we can get it through. Next up, Solar Phyrexia, 6/6 Trampler that has pay 5, permanent you control gain indestructible until end of turn. A great repeatable way to protect our board. And even if this is in our graveyard, we can pay 5 to exile it and do the exact same thing. Then there's Wake the Past, sorcery for 7 mana, return all artifact cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. They gain haste till end of turn. A great way to just reset things and say, yeah, you thought you had us dealt with. We are back at it right away, swinging at you. Moving on to tactic number 7, smash to pieces. And yeah, we will just demolish things with Delete. A great name for this card. Sorcery for X red, X damage each non-artifact creature and each player. Yeah, this can be game ending. Wiping our opponent's boards and keeping ours pretty much, untouched. And then all of a sudden swinging through after dealing all that damage too. Crush Contraband, another great card as well. Exile an artifact, exile an enchantment. Aether Gale, we got 5 mana, bounce 6 non-land permanents. What's not to love about that? Blade Griff Prototype, an artifact creature can help us out too. A 3/2 flyer, deals combat to a player, destroy target non-land permanent of that player's choice that one of your opponents controls. So yeah, you can make some friends, you can make some enemies, destroy some things. Austere Command, very flexible board wipe. Basically, pick 2 artifacts, enchantments, big creatures, small creatures, whatever you want to get rid of. Do choose that. Steel Hellkite, get rid of a lot of things though. First up, it's got some fire breathing like an artifact form for 2 mana plus 1/0. That's nice. On top of that though, pay X, destroy each non-land permanent with that mana value, whose controller result combat damage by this. So yeah, that can be just wiping out a lot of things. Keep in mind you can get rid of tokens with this, paying 0. Then there's Angel of the Ruins. ETB, exile an artifact, exile an enchantment. Lovely. Also an artifact creature, 5/7 flyer. Meteor Golem, also at 7 mana, 3/3 ETB, destroy a non-land permanent opponent controls. Organic Extinction is huge though. Improvise, so our artifacts can help us cast this, so it can basically be free. On top of that, destroy all non-artifact creatures. Yeah, that's huge. Again, basically a one-sided board wipe to really set ourselves up for victory. Next up, tactic number 8, less is more. First up, Enthusiastic Mechanist, 2/2 Goblin Artificer for 2 mana. Is it with flying? Artifact spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Yeah, this can get ridiculous. In an artifact deck, reducing cost can be amazing because a lot of artifacts have generic mana value, and you can end up casting a lot of things for free. So we also have Ethereum Sculptor, which does the exact same thing, and Foundry Inspector, which does the exact same thing, and Joyous Familiar, which is very similar, almost the same thing. 2/2 bird with flying that costs 4. Historic spells you cast cost 1 less to cast, so that does count artifacts, but also, well, legendaries like our commander. And then there's tactic number 9, get it started. Of course, first up, there's Wayfarer's Bauble, pay 2 taps, sacrifice, get a basic land and play tap. Everflowing Chalice, very flexible mana rock, pay 2 taps for 1. 4 taps for 2, etc., etc. Arcane Signet, cost 2, taps for either of our colors, essentially. Azorius Signet, this is a great filtering thing, you know, like the Signets, essentially. Pay 1 into it, it taps for 2 colors. So does Boros Signet, and so does Izzet Signet. Then there's Fellwire Stone, can tap for any mana our opponent's lands could produce, which is usually all of our colors. Then there's Mind Stone, only taps for a color, so we can pay 1 to tap and sacrifice it to draw a card. We've got some Talismans as well with Conviction, which can tap for Boros colors, but 1 damage to us, or just stay colors for no damage. Talisman of Progress, the exact same thing, but in Azorius colors. And then finally, an artifact creature can help us out as well. Solemn Simulacrum, ETB, go get a land, put in play tapped. Dies, draw a card. Either way, it's going to be helping us out. But now this episode is coming to a close, it's time for me to hear from you. So in the comments below, let me know your thoughts on this deck. Or if you are interested in this deck, make sure you check out that deck list link in the description below. And of course, as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.